In the laws of nature, biology and mechanics seem to belong to two parallel worlds. Nature creates muscles, bones, and tendons, but does not manufacture gears or saw blades. Yet, around 270 million years ago, this seemingly immutable law was shattered. The Permian Ocean gave birth to a literal aberration, Helicoprion. This is the only creature in the history of life that dared to integrate a machine-like mechanism into a living body. It didn't just grow teeth for biting like sharks, it developed a continuous spiral conveyor belt tooth system used to roll and cut prey with a coldly terrifying efficiency. Its existence challenges every intuition about anatomy, and today we will not only learn about an extinct fish species, but also decode the blueprint of one of the most sophisticated and brutal biological weapons ever to operate on the prehistoric ocean floor. Helicoprion did not possess a normal jaw, but carried within its mouth a truly living mechanical system. But the danger lay not only in the mechanism, but in its scale. This was a heavy industrial-grade machine with an estimated length of up to 33 feet, equivalent to a bus. At that time, it was the largest creature on the planet. Imagine a predator twice the size of today's great white shark, patrolling the ocean with a power saw operating right inside its mouth. That is the definition of absolute dominance. For many decades, textbooks described Helicoprion as a creature specialized in crushing the hard shells of ammonites using its spiral tooth whirl like a giant nutcracker. However, that interpretation has been refuted. Modern research shows this structure was not designed for crushing. It is an active cutting mechanism optimized for slicing and processing prey rather than breaking hard shells. The evidence lies right on the tooth surface. Microscopic analyses show that the scratches on Helicoprion teeth are longitudinal striations, signs of cutting through soft tissue rather than the jagged fractures commonly seen in animals that eat hard shells. This is where nature's engineering genius shines. Helicoprion's teeth are not just sharp, they are double-edged teeth with a narrow triangular structure. This design minimizes friction upon contact, allowing the saw to pass through the prey's body as smoothly as a hot knife through butter. This mechanism operates based on a combination of spiral motion and controlled backward sliding. When Helicoprion closed its mouth, the lower jaw didn't just shut like a conventional hinge. Instead, it slid backward and rotated inward toward the throat, pulling the spiral tooth whirl to move like a rotating cutting blade. The front teeth gripped the prey, firmly securing the slippery soft tissue. As the motion continued, the teeth in the middle of the whirl created deep, clean cuts. Finally, the rotational force guided the processed food portion directly into the esophagus in one continuous chain of motion. This mechanism allowed it to efficiently process soft-bodied creatures like squid without needing appendages to hold prey, a capability that modern sharks lack. More notably, its upper jaw bore no sharp teeth for symmetrical biting. Instead, it had a firm, cushioning surface, serving as a biological fulcrum, keeping prey stable while the lower tooth whirl performed the cutting operation. Imagine it like the principle of a deli meat slicer in a supermarket. The blade rotates below while the top surface only serves as a fixed support platform. Helicoprion didn't simply eat, it operated an organized and precise food processing assembly line right within its own oral cavity. We often call it the saw-jawed shark, a name that evokes a sense of violence and death. But in reality, this is one of the greatest mistakes in the history of taxonomy. In 2013, when Tapanila's research team placed the fossil into a high-resolution CT scanner, they didn't just see bone structure. They saw a truth that had been concealed for hundreds of millions of years. The scan results showed this creature was not a shark. Helicoprion had the appearance of an ocean killer, but its origins told a completely different story. Deep details within the skull indicated that it belonged to the Eugenodontida group within the class Holocephali chimaeris. This means its closest living relatives are not the great white shark or bull shark, but ratfish, also known as chimaeras, large-eyed creatures living quietly in the deep sea layers. This truth is like discovering that a heavily armored tank actually shares the same engine as a quiet electric car. Helicoprion was a strange evolutionary branch that diverged from the shark lineage very early, carrying ancient anatomical features that modern sharks have discarded. The difference lies not only in nomenclature, but in how the body was designed to operate. Unlike sharks with their exposed gill slits, Helicoprion had an operculum gill cover, allowing more active respiratory control rather than complete dependence on continuous swimming. This mechanical detail is extremely important. It allowed Helicoprion to lie motionless in ambush on the seafloor or hover in the water waiting for prey instead of having to move ceaselessly like a perpetual machine. Its jaw joint structure was also fundamentally different. The upper jaw was fixed firmly to the skull rather than being flexible like in modern sharks. In mechanical engineering, this type of joint is called autodiastylic. While sharks have loose jaws that can protrude flexibly when biting, Helicoprion chose absolute stability. Its skull was welded together into a solid block. It was precisely this stability that created a solid foundation for the spiral tooth whorl to function as a powerful cutting mechanism. Helicoprion was not a bizarre shark. It was a separate evolutionary branch diverging from the common ancestor very early and developing along a path that no other species would replicate. This reclassification didn't just change a name in a museum, but forced us to reconsider the entire ancient ocean ecosystem. The fearsome predator of the Permian period was not a primitive version of sharks, but a creature belonging to a different evolutionary lineage, carrying a biological design that is utterly unique in the history of life. Why would evolution create a predator that never forgets its own past? A creature that carries the entire history of its maturation right within its jaws. That is precisely what makes Helicoprion an absolute aberration of the ancient ocean. While modern sharks operate like consumptive machines, continuously replacing and discarding old teeth, like ejecting spent shells after each reload, Helicoprion refused to forget anything. It is nature's great hoarder. According to groundbreaking research based on high-resolution CT scans by Tapanila and colleagues 2013, this spiral structure is not merely a weapon, it is a complete dental chronicle in enamel. The tiny, fragile teeth nestled deep in the center of the whorl are the very first baby teeth from when the animal was newly born. They are not shed, but carefully preserved like childhood memories. As the animal grew and became a 33-foot titan, new larger teeth would emerge at the base of the jaw, pushing the entire old tooth system forward and rolling it deeper into the oral cavity, creating an eternal loop. Nothing is left behind. The creature's entire growth history, from a weak juvenile to a giant dominating the ocean, is all packaged and encoded within the lower jawbone. The most terrifying detail lies in the efficiency of this design. Helicoprion's teeth are typically found in a state of perfect sharpness, showing no signs of wear like those of T-Rex or other shark species. Why? Because the spiral structure acts as a biological scabbard. The primary cutting edges are hidden away, absolutely protected within soft tissue until the final moment when they are rotated into attack position. Computer simulations show that most of the spiral whorl actually lay deep inside the skull, encased by cartilage and muscle. Only about 10 to 15 of the sharpest teeth on the outer edge were exposed to perform the killing task. This means that in every bite, Helicoprion always used blades in factory, fresh condition, never having tasted failure. This structure transformed its jaw into an infinite magazine. There, the sharpest, most mature blades always remained in the forward position to inflict maximum damage, while obsolete weapons were withdrawn to the rear, safely preserved like backup files in a biological hard drive. Helicoprion carried its entire life within each bite, a design both romantic and brutal that nature would never repeat a second time. Before modern technology decoded this machine, humanity spent over a century groping in the darkness of ignorance. Since geologist Alexander Karpinski discovered the first fossil in 1899 in the Ural Mountains, the complete absence of the cartilaginous skeleton drove the scientific community mad. They held in their hands a perfect engine, the spiral tooth whirl, but lost the entire chassis blueprint of the monster. Initially, Karpinski even mistook it for the shell of an ammonite species due to its perfectly spiral shape. It took a long time before people realized it was the tooth of a vertebrate animal. The tooth whirl stood alone like the only evidence at a crime scene, forcing paleontologists to play a desperately blind game of jigsaw puzzle. Early reconstruction drawings looked more like glitched science fiction art than serious science. Karpinski, in a desperate attempt to explain the spiral structure, drew it coiled on the creature's snout like a saw blade elephant trunk, believing it was used to lash at prey. Later colleagues like Oliver Hay argued that such a dangerous weapon could not be placed in the mouth as it would obstruct feeding. They relocated it to the dorsal fin as a defensive weapon to tear open the bellies of enemies attacking from above, or even attached it to the tail tip like a spiked club. Each time a new fossil was found, a crazy hypothesis was born, turning Helicoprion into the creature with the most appearances in paleontological history. This catastrophic confusion lasted over 100 years, not only due to lack of physical evidence, but because human imagination was imprisoned by normal templates. We tried to force an aberrant Permian design into the anatomical standards of modern sharks. It took over a century of debate and the intervention of high-intensity X-rays in 2013 before we finally accepted the brutal truth. This machine was not designed to be flaunted externally like jewelry. It was concealed, compressed, and operated entirely inside the throat. Nature didn't create this saw for intimidation. It created it to kill in the most silent and efficient way from within. Surviving the great extinction catastrophe, Helicoprion nevertheless fell before the changing tides of time. It died not from weakness, but from over-specialization. When prey evolved, its perfect hardware became obsolete, turning it into a design that nature permanently deleted with no descendants. What do you think about this bizarre biological machine? Could there be other prehistoric technologies waiting to be decoded? Leave your comments below. Thank you for following AncientDoc. See you again in the next Top Secret Files. Would you like me to generate a high-fidelity image of how Helicoprion's conveyor belt jaw likely looked according to modern science?